I want to talk to you today about an issue where success is the problem. Design determines results. A train will never fly, no matter how powerful the engine might be, because it is not designed to fly. A microlight aircraft, on the other hand, with an engine smaller than most motorcycles, flies because it is designed to fly. The problem with our schooling today is not that it has failed, but that it's humongously successful. It does what it is designed to do, which is to create mediocrity and conformity. So that we have more and more compliant plotters who will never rock the boat, never question, and God forbid, never rebel against authority. It delivers very effectively what it was designed to deliver, which is obedient morons. Or to put it more charitably, obedient servants for industrialists and the state. That is exactly what our education system does very well. We, on the other hand, wanted to create children who will question, be creative, challenge the status quo, invent new ways to achieve results, and generally buck the system positively. That is like expecting a train to fly by revving the engine. Our system is designed to create followers, not leaders. It is designed to create compliance, not questioners. And that is why we reward obedience and we label questioning as disobedience and we punish it. For the average teacher, the troublesome child is the one who asks too many questions in class. But it's only questioning which opens the doors to new vistas and finds solutions to problems that we don't even recognize as problems yet. I'm sure many of you watching this video will recall the day when we thought that plastics, single-use plastics, plastic bottles, plastic bags were God's gift to mankind. And that wasn't all that long ago. We all agree that the pace of change is such that quite literally we don't have a clue about what the world will look like in 5 years down the road. The only thing that we can be sure of is that it will look very different. We also agree that the two critical ingredients to success in that world are imagination and divergent thinking, of which creativity is the result. Yet we have an education system that destroys these things very effectively and quickly, ruthlessly. If you doubt me, ask yourself how many times you've heard the statement, "Forget that, you can't get a job doing that." And you're right, he can't get a job doing that. But perhaps he can create jobs for hundreds and thousands if you leave him alone with his dreams and not destroy his creativity and divergence. Or maybe he will not even create jobs, but will be a happy human being living his life to fulfillment. Now, what's so bad about that? But that terrifies the daylights out of you. And so you force him, your child, Mr. and Mrs. Parrot, to comply until he succumbs. Another one bites the dust. Now, if you want your child to be a leader with a chance to do something valuable, to leave a legacy of honor, to change society, to alleviate suffering, to help the oppressed, to stand up against injustice and be a credit to you, then formal schooling is the first thing that you should save him or her from. Our education system doesn't need change. It needs a decent burial. It needs a funeral. Then we need to put in place a system which is focused on developing the natural talents of the child, enabling him or her to leverage them to their greatest benefit and then help them to apply the learning. No matter how much you tweak a railway engine, it is never going to fly. If you want flight, then there's nothing in the design of a railway engine that you can learn from. You need to forget about designing railway engines and learn how to design something that can take to the air, something that's the opposite of the railway engine. And that is our problem. We are trying to create a flying school using engine drivers. It's not about fancy infrastructure, air conditioned classrooms, but about opening minds, relearning how to teach, writing new books, new teaching tools, encouraging questioning, encouraging tangential thinking, and unbridled imagination. As a friend of mine who is a teacher put it, we are churning out robots who can neither think for themselves nor do we equip them to deal with life's challenges, which is why there is such a high percentage of emotional and physical burnout at an age when they should be at their creative peak. Now, is anybody concerned? The big problem in schools is that the whole atmosphere is soul destroying. Homes are not much different. So most children don't look up to either their parents or teachers, and the fault is not theirs. Most parents and teachers are only fit to be quietly pushed under the bed when you have polite company. Generally, parents today seem to believe that upbringing or raising up of children consists of satisfying their physical needs alone. So there is no focus on developing their minds, fulfilling their spiritual needs, or teaching them manners and social skills. We program our children to fail when they are faced with life challenges, and those that still succeed do so despite us, not because of us. When I'm invited to speak to parent-teacher bodies in schools, I usually start all such talks by giving them a task, asking them two questions. The first one, I tell them, please think of your role model. Just think about your role model. Somebody you know or knew personally. Don't say Mahatma Gandhi or something. Somebody that you knew personally or you know personally. And then the second question I ask them is, for how many of you is it a parent or a teacher? I have never had more than 5% of the population in the audience who had either a parent or a teacher for a role model across countries, across nationalities, across societies, across religious beliefs, across education levels. Not more than 5% of the population have either a parent or a teacher as a role model, though these are the two roles which have the maximum face time with children. I want you to think about that a little bit. Now, once they have done this, I ask them a last final question, and that is, what do you think your children will say if they were here in this room instead of you? Would they be thinking of you when I ask this question? The biggest problem today is a total starvation of role models. And that is the biggest challenge of education. Today, we seem to have confused education with literacy and knowledge with information or even data, and stuff the children's minds with disconnected data which makes no sense, and then test them on recall at a specific time, and we call that process of regurgitation exams. That has given birth to the industry of examination factories. Utterly disgusting. Examination factories, which exist only to teach children how to crack exams. Learning is the last item on their agenda, even if it is even there at all. All that the child is taught is to cram select information on the basis of questions that have been asked for that exam in the past, and the exam factory's analysis of what is likely to be asked in the exam that child will take now. Once he does that successfully, his photograph is then used as the bait to draw other aspiring fish into the trap of mediocrity. The champ in our system is that poor beast who can stuff himself with random information which he has no clue how to use and faithfully regurgitate it on call. If the poor child recalls the same piece of useless information, for example, when was the Magna Carta signed? 5 minutes after the bell, he would have failed the exam. To know the place of birth of Shakespeare is essential to pass our exams, but not to write creatively in English. No wonder that many of our successful scholars can hardly carry on an intelligent conversation for 10 minutes or write a powerful letter to the editor in the papers. Did you ever wonder why all letters to editors are written by old codgers with nothing to do? Not by school children whose future is being squandered by adults who couldn't care less. Our children spend, on an average, 15 years in what is called primary, secondary, and high school, and come out of there completely unable to do anything useful, worthwhile, or important in life. Give it some thought. The only job that they can get with 15 years of schooling is to wait tables, for which they also have to be trained on site. They can't even do anything their education is supposed to teach them. How many school graduates do you know who wrote a book, for example? After all, they all learned languages and they passed papers in them for 15 years, and yet that is not enough for them to use that language creatively to express their thoughts, their emotions, their ideas, their hopes and aspirations, then their fears and apprehensions. Nothing. But we find nothing wrong with this. Their parents, amazingly, don't think this to be odd at all, even though they spend a fortune which many could ill afford on this thing that they call education. I won't even talk about how we squander science and math and humanities. Our society is the most powerful witness to that. In this whole process, I can't possibly underemphasize the importance of wise adults in the lives of children that the children can look up to. I was very fortunate that I had people in my life who I could look up to, who I could emulate, and who died many years ago, but in my heart they are alive, and I think of them, I visualize them, and I correct myself sometimes when I'm doing something, when the thought comes to me, what would so and so have thought about what you are saying or doing if they had heard you today? But where are we going to find such people? We don't need huge numbers of them. Not that that would hurt, but we don't need large numbers. But we need at least one or two in the life of each child. The problem of drugs and rave parties and teenage pregnancies and alcohol is also a drug, though we don't like to call it that, and so on, are really symptoms of the sickness of our society. That these are to be found in our schools is a sign of how deep that sickness has reached. They are very sick. We need surgery, not pills, and definitely not placebos. Problem definition is always easy. Solving it takes a lot of time and pain and investment, and that is usually another story. But somewhere there is a spark, alive and waiting for the chance to flame into a conflagration that has the power to light up the world. My question to you is, are you the one to find and protect and nurture and guide this to the final stage when it can shine? I want to end with the famous words of Jiddu Krishnamurti, who said that it is not the sign, it's not a sign of health to be profoundly adjusted to a sick society. I think that is what we have become, and that is the challenge that we have to overcome. I wish you all the best. This is a matter which must take absolute top precedence in terms of our priorities. It is not the only thing, it is everything. And we, my generation, the so-called parents of the time, it is our responsibility. We have children who are going to look back at us. Ask yourself this question: what do you want that child to be thinking? Thank you very much for watching, and see you next week.